Jones, who's the Deputy Director of the U.S. Program for the Center for Reproductive Rights. You also worked very recently with Dr. Tiller. Tell us about this class action suit.
Sure. This was actually related to one of the cases that Laura Schoenfeld talked about. A group of citizens by petition organized a grand jury to investigate Dr. Tiller, and that grand jury subsequently subpoenaed the medical records of thousands of Dr. Tiller's patients. When that happened, many of Dr. Tiller's patients, as you already heard, are incredibly grateful and appreciative of all that he did for them. Patients came forward wanting to help Dr. Tiller, and we ended up representing some of those patients on behalf of all of the patients involved in trying to protect the confidentiality of their medical records. Dr. Tiller was incredibly committed to protecting the confidentiality of his patients and to protecting their safety, their health, and their well-being. And so we represented those patients in trying to block the turning over of their medical records to the grand jury. And ultimately, as Dr. Tiller always had faith in, justice did prevail, and the Kansas Supreme Court quashed the subpoenas that were in place, substantially limited them, and allowed only very limited information and none of the patients' names or any identifying information to be turned over to the grand jury.
I wanted to play a clip of Bill O'Reilly. Dr. Tiller was vilified in the right-wing media, which often called him Tiller the baby killer. According to Salon.com, Fox News host Bill O'Reilly mentioned Dr. Tiller on 29 episodes of his program, The O'Reilly Factor, often with scathing attacks. This is an excerpt of an O'Reilly broadcast from June of 2007.
No matter what you think about the abortion issue, you should be very disturbed by what continues to happen in Kansas. This man, Dr. George Tiller, known as Tiller the baby killer, is performing late-term abortions without defining the specific medical reasons why. Let's be more blunt. Tiller is executing fetuses in his Wichita clinic for $5,000, and records show he'll do it for vague medical reasons. That is, he'll kill the fetus viable outside the womb if the mother wants it dead. No danger to the mother's life, no catastrophic damage if the woman delivers. Now, some Kansas politicians want to stop the madness, but incredibly, Governor Kathleen Sebelius is protecting Tiller. Citing privacy, the governor vetoed a bill a few weeks ago that would have forced Tiller to provide a specific medical reason for destroying a viable fetus. Now, America is a great country, but this kind of barbaric display in Kansas diminishes our entire nation. Tiller has killed thousands of late-term fetuses without explanation. And Governor Sebelius is allowing him to continue the slaughter. How the governor sleeps at night is beyond me. There are Americans who believe that babies that are about to be born are not human beings. How they form that conclusion is interesting. There are only a handful of doctors in the USA who will perform late-term abortions for any reason, because doctors know viable life when they see it.
That was Bill O'Reilly in 2007. Dr. Shelley Sella, you're standing outside the Reformation Lutheran Church where Dr. Tiller was gunned down yesterday in church. He served as an usher in his church. Your response to Bill O'Reilly?
Well, I think I'd like to respond by quoting Dr. Tiller. And what he has often said was, women are spiritually, morally, and intellectually capable of struggling with complex ethical decisions and arriving at the correct decision for themselves and their family.
Dr. Shelley Sella, you provide late-term abortion, certainly very controversial. Your thoughts about this?
My thoughts about
late-term abortions.
Late-term abortions?
Yes.
Well, I am completely in harmony with Dr. Tiller's view that, just as I quoted him, and I think that there will always be a need for abortion. There will always be a need for first trimester abortion, second and third trimester abortion.
Bonnie Scott
And the important thing is to provide that service.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Sella.
And I think it's important to provide that service competently and compassionately, and that is exactly what Dr. Tiller did.
Well, can that term, late-term abortion, let me put that to you, Bonnie Scott Jones, what does it mean?
Well, it's actually a term without a defined meaning. I mean, there is no meaning. There are first trimester, second trimester abortions. There are third trimester abortions, some of which are pre-viability, some of which are post-viability. Dr. Tiller, I mean, I just want to make a point that the clip is utterly false in that investigators over and over again, grand juries of Dr. Tiller's peers found that he was innocent, that he performed his abortions in compliance with the law. What the law permits in terms of post-viability abortions are abortions to protect the woman's life or health. I just want to say that what I hope Dr. Tiller's tragic death will awaken in our policymakers and in the public is a recognition that enough is enough. We as a country have to stop tolerating the villainization of abortion providers. Abortion is a significant part of healthcare in this country. It will continue to be. 1 in 3 women will seek abortion services in their lifetime. It's part of healthcare. And we cannot allow the villainization of abortion providers. The doctors who provide those services must be respected and protected, not villainized, not ghettoized, not segregated, and not subject to conditions that would be considered utterly intolerable in any other area of medicine. So I really hope this is a wake-up call to our lawmakers and our government to come forward and protect these doctors.
I wanted to read an excerpt from the Kansas City Star that just came out. It says, the suspect in custody for the slaying of Wichita abortion Dr. George Tiller was a member of an anti-government group in the 90s and a staunch opponent of abortion. Scott Roeder of Merriam, Kansas, a Kansas City suburb, was arrested on Interstate 35 near Gardner in suburban Johnson County, Kansas, about 3 hours after the shooting. Tiller was shot to death around 10 a.m. inside the Reformation Lutheran Church in Wichita. In the rear window of the '93 blue Ford Taurus that he was driving was a red rose, a symbol often used by abortion opponents. On the rear of his car was a Christian fish symbol with the word Jesus inside. Those who know Roeder said he believed killing abortion doctors was an act of justifiable homicide. And it quotes Regina Dinwiddie saying, I know that he believed in justifiable homicide. She's a Kansas City anti-abortion activist who made headlines in '95 when she was ordered by a federal judge to stop using a bullhorn within 500 feet of any abortion clinic. She said, I know he very strongly believed that abortion was murder and that you ought to defend the little ones, both born and unborn. Roeder also was a subscriber to Prayer in Action News, a magazine that advocated the justifiable homicide position, according to David Leach, an anti-abortion activist in Des Moines, Iowa. Leach said he met Roeder in Topeka when he went there to visit Shelley Shannon, who was in prison for the 1993 shooting of Tiller. Roeder, who in the 90s was a manufacturing assemblyman, also was involved in the Freemen movement. Again, I'm continuing to read from the Kansas City Star. Freemen was a term adopted by those who claimed sovereignty from government jurisdiction and operated under their own legal system, which they called common law courts. Adherents declared themselves exempt from laws, regulations, and taxes, and often filed liens against judges, prosecutors, and others, claiming that money was owed to them as compensation. In April '96, Roeder was arrested in Topeka after Shawnee County Sheriff's deputies stopped him for not having a proper license plate. In his car, officers said they found ammunition, a blasting cap, a fuse cord, a 1-pound can of gunpowder, and 2 9-volt batteries, with one connected to a switch that could have been used to trigger a bomb. Morris Wilson, commander of the Kansas Unorganized Citizens Militia in the mid-'90s, said he knew Roeder fairly well. He said, I'd say he's a good old boy, except he was just so fanatic about abortion. He was always talking about how awful abortion was, but there's a lot of people who think abortion is legal. In recent years, someone using the name Scott Roeder has posted anti-Tiller comments on various internet sites. One post dated September 3rd, 2007, and placed on a site sponsored by Operation Rescue called ChargeTiller.com said Tiller needed to be stopped. It went on to say, it seems as though what's happening in Kansas could be compared to the lawlessness which is spoken of in the Bible. Tiller is the concentration camp Mengele of our day and needs